to get acquainted with Alfie Miller is that he's a nobody, a man in his own world and to himself just seems invisible to anyone around him. Alfie is 20 years old. He was born with Down syndrome and learning difficulties. His parents Terry and June are poles apart in personality and how they interact with their son. Terry is stubborn, oblivious to his son's existence whom he wasn't present on the day when he born and can be standoffish which he quick to anger. June's an unemployed but loving housewife and most times is protective of her son although she'd given him mostly a sheltered life like she was trapping him away from bad influences that might corrupt him. When at school Alfie was quite easily led by other pupils if they catch him in their orbit and would get into trouble because of it. Examples include smashing a car's passenger side window with a large stone and hiding packets of cigarettes in his backpack only to get busted by the deputy teacher. After school Alfie went to college for a year and the same troubles emerged. He usually stays at home, watching various shows on VHS to keep him amused and sometimes heads off to the off-license to get what he desires for a pocket money price. One afternoon Alfie is strolling through the streets minding his own business and starts hearing a fuzzing sound coming from a back street. He investigates and finds a black bin bag. It was heavy and he had a quick look. It was a computer. He also wanted a computer and decided to take it home. A free computer just left on the street. It just needed a wipe and he'll be in business. Alfie returns home with the bin bag. He passes his parents having their usual argument about anything and heads upstairs. He places the computer on his chest of drawers and wipes it down with a face cloth. Then tries to plug in the wires and switch it on. Nothing happened which disappointed him slightly. Suddenly the screen slowly came on and a pair of pink lips appeared. The computer spoke to him in a soothing but seductive voice and introduced herself as Sienna. Alfie just stared at it and giggled. Sienna asked him to assist her in completing her update and Alfie questioned her how can he. And small electrical wire then wiggles out of Sienna and implemented itself into Alfie's right palm. Alfie suddenly froze and what he saw in his eyes was like something out of the Lawnmower Man. Sienna explains she needs rebuilding to carry out something she should have done a year ago but doesn't tell Alfie what it is and lets him go. He felt weird and like he obtained confidence to do what he wanted to do like Sienna had scrambled his brain in a right way. He felt energized. Sienna instructed him to go and get certain pieces for her. The next day Alfie heads out to an electronics store. Sienna wanted circuit boards and microchips for what she needs for her plan. The store worker Martin Wade's knew Alfie and always been friendly towards him. While Martin was at the desk messing around with his Motorola mobile phone, Alfie was scavenging round the sections and brought a screwdriver. He successfully removed him from the machines and retired what Sienna is after. Martin notices this and scolds Alfie for sabotaging the supply. Alfie said Sienna needs these and she'll be happy. Martin asks if Sienna is a girl Alfie met and is manipulating him. Alfie didn't reply and started to move out the store. Martin abruptly stopped him in his tracks and tries to take the plastic bag which Alfie put the components in. Alfie shouted at him and tried to snatch the plastic bag back. Sienna, who now had connected a psychic link to Alfie's mind, tells him to kill Martin. Unwilling, Alfie pulled out a sharp knife he took from his kitchen and pointed the blade at Martin's face. Martin bluffs Alfie's threats and thinks it as a joke. Then Alfie thrusts the knife into Martin's stomach and repeatedly stabs him 3 times. Martin slumps to the floor and Alfie leaves him in a pool in his own blood. Alfie walks back home and Sienna communicated back to praise his actions. Alfie smirked and carried on home. The doctor and Louisa are by the waterfront. The doctor explains to Louisa by pointing at the location where the Beatles statues will be placed in 14 years' time, and Louisa gives a small reply while looking out the sea. The two walked around the city seeing what it had to offer. The doctor was posing against the entrances at both the Cavern Club and Eric's, observing Liverpool's cathedral and even visiting Penny Lane. The doctor even signed his initials around sign with a piece of white chalk. The two decided head back to the TARDIS. Louisa said brought a thing or two even though she was carrying 5 bags full of stuff, and the doctor kept walking while she tailed behind. The doctor noticed police were at the electronics store and saw them investigating the body of Martin Wade's. The doctor had itchy feet because of his curiosity and headed off across the street. A police officer stopped him in his tracks and told him to move away. The doctor brought out a black leather license holder and presented it to the officer. The police officer called in Detective Inspector Eddie Fadden and the doctor is brought in to survey the crime scene. D.I. Fadden explained that Martin Wades was stabbed when trying someone stealing items from the store and pointed the doctor to the electronic items on the floor. The doctor went over and checked. All the circuit boards and chips were taken but not the actual machines themselves. The doctor pondered and thinks this attacker is collecting them for something. D.I. Fadden came over and said they've recovered the camera footage so it will be checked. Hopefully they'll find their man and bring him down. The doctor returns outside where Louisa is waiting. Louisa questions if it was a robbery and the doctor sorta replies with a yes. The thing that was getting to him was why someone would steal electric components rather than the whole thing. D.I. Fadden approaches the doctor and Louisa to ask him to join him back to the police station. While they entered the car, Alfie watches them from afar and Sienna communicated to him to keep a low profile. Within the police station, the doctor and D.I. Fadden observe the camera footage. They see the culprit stabbing Martin Wades and walking off out the door. D.I. Fadden points a pen at the screen and analyses the motive that Martin Wades was preventing the culprit from stealing what the person needed. The doctor was more interested in the culprit's movements and what body language is able to decipher. He reaches over to the screen and explains that the culprit doesn't seem to have the actual motives that any other thief does. D.I. Fadden wasn't following this and kept thinking it's a petty crime at general. Louisa walks in with a few cups of coffee and leans other at what the two were doing. She mentions that it's shame that there's no sound on the camera. The doctor rose up and headed out of the room. He retuned back with two small speakers that he removed from one of the computers, much to the annoyance of the officers who were using it, and wired it to the screen. The sonic screwdriver was brought out and the doctor managed to get the sound from the camera footage. He thanked Louisa and patted her left shoulder. The doctor and D.I. Fadden listened in. The culprit's speech patterns were mixed when speaking certain words and the name Sienna was brought out quite a bit. The doctor knows that the culprit has Down syndrome. D.I. Fadden thinks this Sienna was someone that influenced him in stealing, and the doctor tries to piece why the culprit has stolen electronic components. D.I. Fadden then remembered that there was a robbery recently involving defunct computers that had programming issues before the eve of the millennium. The so-called Y2K bug is known as, and he thinks this man has obtained one of them. He came back with a list of the computers which had names on them for some reason, maybe easy to catalog. The doctor looked and saw the name Sienna. The doctor wonders if the culprit is using the computer for pleasure or destruction. One of the officers came in and said a witness saw a man similar to one they are looking for. D.I. Fadden looked at the sheet of paper. It presented the name Archie Miller. Meanwhile, Archie was assembling the components for Sienna. She told him seductively that once the upgrade is complete, she'll give him freedom to live in a different reality, to be someone and not be belittled by the world around him. Archie pondered this briefly and smiled. He felt like he can be the big man in the big city and gleefully agreed to it. The doctor, Louisa and D.I. Fadden arrive at the Miller's house. They could hear electronic sounds and saw some flashing lights coming from one of the upstairs rooms. D.I. Fadden knocked on the door and Terry opened it. D.I. Fadden presented his badge. Terry, disgruntled, slowly closes the door and the doctor intervened to let them in. Terry becomes aggressive quickly and rages at them that they are from social services to take their son away. The doctor slides in the house and interrogates him. He brings up things like, does Terry love his son and was he always there when he needed him? June walks in from the kitchen and brings out the truth that Terry was never there for Archie. Terry darts towards her and denies all this. June stood up truthfully. He never wanted kids. He believes Archie was an accident and all he wanted was to be the man of the house. Terry's face went a shade of red and June continued. He constantly flirts with various women. Shirley at the bookies, Leslie at the customer service in Asda, and Fiona the traffic warden. Terry raised the back of his hand and looked he's going to hit her but stopped and broke down. He headed to the kitchen and retrieved a can of lager from the fridge. The doctor explained to June that her son had picked up a stolen computer and need to retrieve. June froze in horror and started to panic that her son's a criminal. D.I. Fadden reassured her that her son didn't steal but accidentally took criminal evidence. The doctor headed upstairs with Louisa in tow while D.I. Fadden stayed downstairs with June. The doctor opened Archie's bedroom door and saw the computer in its final upgrading process. Archie tried to remove the doctor from his room by pushing him out the door and Waverly slapping him in defense. The doctor got hold of Archie by the shoulders and pushed him to his bed to sit down. He explains to Archie that he's in process of causing a disaster. Archie didn't believe him and say he's been helping his friend Sienna. Louisa looked at the computer and saw pink lips on the screen. Sienna's seductive voice changed to a screeching, bitter tone and demanded Archie not to be touched. The doctor walked over to Sienna. She used Archie as a puppet because his learning difficulties and that she could easily manipulate. Sienna reveals that she did use him to make her plan work. The doctor demanded what her plan is and Sienna responded with the word chaos. Louisa was confused at what Sienna actually is. The doctor says she's a sentient computer virus and tried to access all the computers through the network worldwide, wanting the world to fall into complete darkness. Archie stood up and confronted Sienna. He shouted at her that he used him and went into a meltdown, demanding her to get out of his mind. Sienna then shot out a wire and inserted it in Archie's left wrist. Archie screamed in pain like he was being violently electrocuted and fell back unconscious. The doctor and Louisa quickly put Archie on his bed. The doctor said Archie's still alive and then leaped to floor where the box unit is situated. He started tearing it apart as a way to stop Sienna and got shocked in the process. Sienna started buffering and let out a small shock wave, causing the light bulbs in the house to shatter. Suddenly the screen that went black and the doctor got up holding a pen drive in his hand. He managed to trap Sienna and then stamped on it not to be used. June and D.I. Fadden entered the room. June headed to Archie's aid and he awoke. June hugged him. He was safe and sound. After the aftermath, Terry left June, packed his bags and left in his dark green Volkswagen Golf. He looked at her and then Archie, who was looking out of the living room window. He drove off never to be seen again and June was holding back her tears. D.I. Fadden later got promoted to detective sergeant and had a little celebration at his local pub with some of his colleagues. He notices the doctor and Louisa sitting nearby. Both them congratulated him and D.S. Fadden suggested that the doctor could work for them like an advisor type role. The doctor disagreed politely. All three chinked glasses with the doctor with his bitter, Louisa's gin soda and lime and D.S. Fadden's white wine.